There we go. We'll try this one more time. We'll call the meeting of the Minot City Council to order for today, Tuesday, February 16th, 2021. It is 5:33 in the afternoon. I would just ask everyone in the audience to go ahead and either silence or put your electronic devices on to vibrate, and we'll keep the distractions down to a minimum. Roll call, please.
Evans.
Here.
Janser.
Here.
Olson.
Here.
Pittner.
Here.
Pajagula.
Here.
Ross.
Here.
Sitma.
Here. Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Before we dive into item number 3, which is the city manager's report, we're going to pause for just a brief moment here, and we just have a couple of recognitions before we get the meeting underway today. Late last year, we had put out a call looking for some of the different citizens around the city of Minot that have contributed extraordinary acts of kindness or their own personal endeavors to improve the lives of those around us, those within the community, and in this case, many outside of the community. Out of those candidates and the people from around the Magic City, one person really stood out. And during the State of the City, we were happy to announce that one extraordinary citizen certainly was not only deserving, but really stood above the rest of the folks that were nominated in this different contest. So this being the very first Citizen of the Year award, it is only fitting that this extraordinary person not only be honored here tonight, but I think really acknowledged for the selfless acts that continued year after year, time over time, to really help the less fortunate within our own community, those that, if nothing else, just needed a friend to talk to, and in this case, beyond the borders of even the United States, stepping forward to improve the lives of others. So, Vicki Fippens, if you would come forward, please. So if no one got a chance, and I'm hoping more of you go online and check out the video, that I believe it's your niece, correct, Jasmine Wallen?
My granddaughter and daughter put it together.
Granddaughter and daughter put together an extraordinary video showing all that Vicki has done and continues to do within our community. And just recently, City Manager Harold Stewart and I just visited the Lord's Cupboard. And Vicki just happened to be there again, volunteering on a day to help hand out food for those that need assistance during some difficult times. So I am very happy to present Vicki Fippens the Mayor Citizen of the Year 2021 award, and very, very well deserved, and can't be more appreciative of all that you do for people within the community. So Vicki, thank you so much for the honor of being able to call you the Citizen of the Year, as well as not only a certificate. We're going to have a plaque, an annual now search for our Citizen of the Year, and we will post that outside of the City Council chambers, and that will, of course, have your name on it as the very first one. And on top of that, First International Bank and Trust did step forward with a contribution of $1,000 on behalf of our Citizen of the Year, who got to choose where this donation was going to. So Vicki, where have you decided that that donation is going to?
The Lord's Covered Food Pantry.
Found it very fitting, as that's where I just happened to meet you, and I apologize if it wasn't for the very first time. I think it was. So, but along with that, I would like to present to you. I'm keeping them in the packet so that you can take them out or put them on display. It's the Minot City coin, as well as the mayor's coin that shows the provide, power, and protect as an appreciation for all that you do for the city of Minot. So, Vicki, thank you so much for all that you do for the community. And would you like to say a few words?
Well, I've been saying a lot of words to the press and everybody, it seems like, and I'm kind of a behind-the-scenes type gal, so it's not that easy. But I just hope to be an inspiration to others with this, and hope that they realize how much fun it can be helping others.
Vicki, thank you. I appreciate it. Thank you again to First International Bank and Trust for the donation of $1,000 that will be going to the Lord's Food Cupboard, as it will be very well utilized there. And then, of course, for Jasmine Wallen, who had put that together, Farmers Union Insurance is donating $100 to going through the effort so that she can put that to whatever use that she does want to. So thank you again, Vicki. Alderwoman Evans, I understand that we also do have a group of scouts that are here this evening.
We do. So Alderwoman Olson and I have a soft spot for the Girl Scouts. Both of us have been in Girl Scouts, or the equivalent in Canada, the Girl Guides. Had a tremendous impact on our lives, I think, in our development as leaders. So I was happy to host some young women from the Girl Scout Troop 13631 in Minot here today, who are working on their Democracy for Ambassadors badge, learning more about government and how we operate at the local level. They also do some state and federal stuff, but it was great. So they're going to observe us, you know, democracy in action. But thank you all for coming. And their Girl Scout leader is actually a city employee at our water treatment plant, Janet. So thank you for thinking of us and bringing them here to hopefully learn more about how city government operates. And most of them will be able to vote soon. So, you know, keep involved and stay engaged. And thank you for coming.
I think that alone is a round of applause for coming to a city council meeting. And one last item before we jump into our city manager report. We do have a COVID update from First District Health Unit, as well as the vaccination process continues. So Ms. Lisa Clute, if you would, please.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council members.
Lisa, if you could pull the microphone just a little closer to you. There you go.
So vaccinations are going very well. We are, first of all, I have to step back and say our numbers continue to be good. We did have a couple clusters this past weekend, not significant, but so it's still there. And again, I have to continue to ask everybody to practice good mitigation strategies while we are in this vaccine effort. So with that, currently, and I'll explain, these numbers are underreported. However, between your private healthcare providers and First District, we have vaccinated 10,427 doses. That's as of the 14th. We also are showing that 11.3% have, the population has received 1 dose. Now, there's a couple things that impact those numbers. Because of military security, we are not able to get the number of doses that Minot Air Force Base has administered, and they have administered significant number of doses. And so we know that, I could guess, but I won't. We know those are significant numbers, and we know that anybody that has access to the base right now is being vaccinated, be teachers, dependents, anybody there. So that is the number that is not included into that number, as well as the VA vaccinations aren't. The reason they are not, and as I said, for military security reasons, but also they do not register any of their immunizations into the North Dakota Immunization Registry software system. So that's why we don't have access to those. So we know those numbers are higher, and we're happy about that. We continue to meet with healthcare providers each week. There's been a couple things. We have now moved into the 65 and older population. We announced that today at First District, so you can contact us and schedule your appointment. Medical providers have been doing invites to that 65 and older population. We did not put 65 and older with 2 medical conditions. We felt like we'd spend more time on the phone answering what those medical conditions were than we would actually vaccinating. So we chose in this community to just go 65 and older. The other access to vaccine is through Thrifty Mart. They have signed the federal contract, pharmaceutical contract, and so they are scheduling appointments also. So that's Thrifty Mart throughout the state. They will be following similar our vaccination groups, and so they were in the 75 and older, and I think now they have moved into the 65 and older population also. So that includes another access point for people to get vaccine. So, as I said, we've moved into the 65 and olders. We continue to vaccinate at the same process that we are utilizing at First District. And you'll see like Trinity is doing Saturday mass vaccination, similar process that we're utilizing. We've increased capacity now so that we can run up to 3,000 people per week through that system. It is the preferred system of administering the vaccine. People often ask, why aren't we running the big mass vaccinations? This is just more consumer friendly. People get in and out quickly. There aren't long lines. And so as long as we can accommodate making those appointments, we'll continue to do that. We anticipate that, well, right now this week, First District is doing second doses of the Pfizer, and you'll see in the schedules that it's typically, 1 week is first doses, next week is second doses, and so forth. We try to keep those scheduled like that. The pharmacies were receiving an allocation for the most part. Most of those allocations are being, not all, but some of those allocations are being turned back over to public health, and we are distributing to private providers and opening up our capacity there. So with that, I guess I would be happy to answer any questions. Of course, everybody wants to know when we'll be into the next tier. And I will say with the amount of vaccine that we are seeing coming into the community right now and the various access points, we are moving much quicker than what we anticipated. So I would expect us to be going down to those groups fairly rapidly.
Thank you, Ms. Clute, and just for the public's information as well, we continue to do the Binex testing at the Minot Fire Department. Our schedules are evolving a little bit as I guess the public's needs are also being taken into consideration, and to the public to make sure to check out the website, the city's website, and you can see what those times and dates are, and then also a link there to pre-register before you do show up for that testing. Any questions for Ms. Clute? Lisa, as always, we appreciate you being here and the update on the process. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much.
That takes us to number 3 on our agenda, the city manager's report. Mr. Stewart.
Attached, you find the memo. We're kind of continuing to tweak, and I appreciate feedback from council on things that you think that you like or that you would like to see changed or altered. Staff and I will discuss that going forward, but as you can see through my own personal part of the report, still spending a lot of time engaging with staff, departments, community leaders, organizations, those types of things, just making sure I have a good feel and a good connection, getting off on the right foot with members of the community. I continue to be impressed by the quality of staff and leadership within the community as I go around. It's always nice when your research shows itself to be true, when you're exploring a community from the outside and seeing that the community really is as good a quality as you expected and hoped. So I'd be happy to answer any questions. We provided a pretty comprehensive legislative update last week at the special council meeting. I did provide an email late Friday afternoon with the most recent update based after the North Dakota League of Cities meeting. But I'd be happy to answer any questions if council needs any.
Thank you, Mr. Stewart. Any questions? Seeing none, we will move on to number 4 on our agenda. This is consider the report of the Planning Commission. We do have a number of items that are before us this evening. 4.1 is the subdivision Woodside 20th edition. The Planning Commission recommends the City Council approve a subdivision plat to create a new subdivision from Lot 7 and 8, Block 1, Woodside, 7th edition, to create a new subdivision to be known as Lot 1, Block 1, Woodside, 20th edition. These properties are located at 3300 and 3301 Spruce Lane, Southeast. Alderman Janser.
Mr. Mayor, I'll move that.
Motion by Alderman Janser to approve. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Alderman Ross. Any discussion on the motion? Any discussion? Final call. Seeing none, please call the roll.
Janser,
Yes.
Olson. Yes. Pittner,
Yes.
Padragula,
Yes.
Ross,
Yes.
Sitma.
Yes.
Yes.
Motion is approved. 4.2 is a public hearing. Outlot 31, the northeast quarter of the southeast quarter, Section 21, Township 155 North, Range 83 West. A public hearing to consider a request from Gravel Products Incorporated to plat an outlot from the unplatted portion of the northeast quarter, southwest quarter, Section 21, Township 155 North, Range 83 West, to be known as Outlot 31 of the northeast quarter, southwest quarter, Section 21, Township 155 North, Range 83 West, and to change the zoning from AG Agricultural District to P Public Zoning. We do have a number of recommendations. First is approve the outlot plat from the unplatted portion of the above-mentioned township range. And 2, pass an ordinance on first reading to change the zoning from AG to P. And 3, adopt a resolution to amend the future land use map of the comprehensive plan to low-density residential with a conceptual greenway connection overlaying the public, semi-public with no change to the conceptual greenway connection overlaying boundaries. Again, this is a public hearing for anyone to come forward and speak either in favor or in opposition to the recommendations that are before us tonight. One more call for a public hearing on any of the above recommendations on the item that is before us. What are the wishes of the council?
Move to close the public hearing and approve all three recommendations.
Motion to close the public hearing and approve the recommendations as put forth by the Planning Commission. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Alderman Janser. Any discussion on the motion? Any discussion? Final call. Seeing none, please call the roll.
Evans?
Yes.
Janser?
Yes.
Olson? Yes. Pittner?
Yes.
Padragula?
Yes.
Ross?
Yes.
Sitma?
Yes. Motion is approved. 4.3 is a public hearing. Lot 2, Block 20, Prairie Green, Second Edition, Lot A, less a portion of Lot 1, the Highland Plaza Edition. A public hearing to consider the request from Willie Fieldhaber for a zoning district change for subdivision of Lot 2, Block 20, Prairie Green, Second Edition, Lot A, less a portion of Lot 1, Highland Plaza Edition, from C4 Planning Commercial District to C2 General Commercial District for the purpose of building design alterations. The property is located at 515 24th Avenue Southwest. Planning Commission recommends the City Council pass an ordinance on the first reading for a zoning district change from C4 Planned Commercial District to C2 on the above-mentioned property. Again, this is a public hearing for anyone to come forward and speak either in favor or in opposition to the recommendation that is before us. Last call on a public hearing for anyone to come forward and speak in favor or in opposition. Seeing none, what are the wishes of the council?
Mr. Mayor, I would move that we close the public hearing and move the item.
Motion by Alderman Olson to close the public hearing and approve the item as recommended. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Alderwoman Evans. Any discussion on the motion? Any discussion? Last call. Seeing none, please call the roll.
Olson?
Yes.
Pittner?
Yep.
Padragula?
Yes.
Ross?
Yes.
Sitma?
Yes.
Evans?
Yes.
Janser?
Yes.
Motion is approved. 4.4 is Lot 4 and 5 of the Energy Park Edition. Planning Commission recommends the City Council approve a resolution for a conditional use permit for hazardous material storage on lots 4 and 5 of the Energy Park's First Edition. These properties are located at 320 and 420 64th Street Southeast. Is there a motion? Alderman Janser.
Mr. Mayor, I'll move the recommendation.
Motion to approve the recommendation by Alderman Janser. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Alderwoman Olson. Any discussion on the motion? Any discussion? Final call. Seeing none, please call the roll.
Janser?
Yes.
Olson?
Yes.
Pittner?
Yes.
Padragula?
Yes.
Ross?
Yes.
Sitma?
Yes.
Evans?
Yes.
Motion is approved. 4.5 is another public hearing, lots 4 and 5 of the Thompson's 6th plat. A public hearing to consider a request for the Evett Melby zoning district change from R3 multiple residential district to RM medium density residential district for lots 4 and 5, Thompson's 6th plat, for the purpose of constructing a convalescent home. These properties are located at 4 39th Avenue Southwest. The Planning Commission recommends the City Council pass an ordinance on first reading for a zoning district change from R3 multiple resident district to RM medium density residential district for lots 4 and 5, Thompson's 6th plat. Again, this is a public hearing for anyone to come forward and speak either in favor or in opposition to the recommendations that are before the council. One more call, a public hearing for anyone to come forward and speak either in favor or in opposition. What are the wishes of the council?
Mr. Mayor, I move that we close the public hearing and approve the item.
Alderwoman Olson has the motion for closing the public hearing and the motion to approve the recommendations. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Alderman Ross. Any discussion on the motion? Any discussion? Last call. Seeing none, motion is to approve. Please call the roll.
Olson?
Yes.
Pittner?
Yes.
Padragula?
Yes.
Ross?
Yes.
Sitma?
Yes.
Evans?
Yes.
Janser?
Yes.
Motion is approved. The final item on the Planning Commission report is 4.6, the Livingston's 9th edition. The Planning Commission recommends the City Council approve a subdivision from Block 4, Livingston's 7th edition, to result in a new subdivision to be known as Livingston's 9th edition. The property is located across the street to the south of 801 and 905 21st Avenue Southeast.
Move approval.
Motion by Alderwoman Olson to approve. Is there a second?
Second?
Second by Alderman Janser. Any discussion on the motion? Any discussion on the motion? Last call. Seeing none, the motion is to approve. Please call the roll.
Olson,
Yes.
Pittner,
Yes.
Padragula,
Yes.
Ross,
Yes.
Sitma,
Yes.
Evans,
Yes.
Janser.
Yes.
Motion is approved. That takes us to our next section of our agenda. These are the consent items. I've been asked previously before the meeting to pull 5.5 and 5.7 for individual discussion. Are there any other items that need to be pulled out of consent for individual consideration? If not, they will be approved as recommendations have been put forward. Seeing none, what are the wishes of the council?
Mr. Mayor, I move approve all consent items.
Motion by Alderman Ross to approve all items on consent with the exception of 5.5 and 5.7. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Alderman Pittner. Discussion on the motion. Any discussion? Last call. Please call the roll.
Ross,
Yes.
Sitma,
Yes.
Evans,
Yes.
Janser,
Yes.
Olson,
Yes.
Pittner,
Yes.
Padragula.
Yes.
Motion is approved. That takes us to 5.5, the budget amendment to recover tax levy shortfall. We do have a presentation by our finance director, Mr. David Lakefield. A brief summary on this. In January, we learned that there was a change in the process of how the homestead tax credit and veterans tax credits property valuations are used in the calculation of the city's tax levy. The result of this change is the collection of $477,160.41 less than anticipated. Recommendation to the council is to approve the budget amendment to transfer the general fund reserves to cover the shortfall due to the change in the calculation of the tax levy. Mr. Lakefield.
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, I want to take a few minutes, if I may, to kind of explain a little bit of the mechanics going into this change and how it came about, and then, of course, how we look forward to doing this in future so we don't encounter this issue again. Typically, we prepare our budgets and deal in dollars that we are going to request from the tax levy from the county. We also convert those to mills so we can compare from prior years and see where we're at and with other jurisdictions and how we've been in the past. So we use both dollars and mill levies, but we actually submit that to the county and ask for dollars. With the change in the calculation, what they were doing is, in the past, we would use the amount we anticipated to get from the tax levy. We had a separate line item in our revenue from what we anticipated would come from the veterans, disabled veterans credits and the homestead tax credits. And those are paid to us directly from the state. So there are a couple of different ways that they're handled. So we had them separated out in different lines. There was a change that came down from the state that instructed the county auditors that they should use the property valuations for those properties that were covered under the disabled veterans tax credits and the homestead credits in their calculation of the mill levies. So the effect that had is it increased the valuation slightly, which drove down our overall mill levy when you looked at the dollars that we were asking compared to the property values. And at first that seems like a very simple thing, but then when they apply that lower mill rate to those properties that aren't included in those tax credits, it doesn't generate the revenue that we anticipated, so we ended up short. This is something that changed this year. It was unexpected. We discovered this when we got the first payment in here in January and couldn't make things tie out, so we had a number of discussions. I did visit with our county auditor and walk through this process so I could get a better handle on exactly how the math was working, because it was confusing just looking at the letter and how that would work out. So in a nutshell, had we included what we had in a separate line item for the money that we anticipated getting from the state, had we included that in our overall amount that we're asking for from the mill levy, we would have been a lot closer in what we got from the county. So, and I think that's our approach next year. Instead of lining that out separately, we'll include it all together. When they use the gross valuation, we should come in right where we need to be. Some of the problem with this, with these credits, is we don't know what they are going to be from year to year. So we use an estimate based on prior years' results in history, and it's a little bit of a forecast. There isn't a deadline for people to apply for those. They can still apply for them and go back retroactively and get those credits as well. So there isn't a set time in the budget cycle where we have a definite number with the valuation. So it's always a little bit of a fluid environment that we're working with as well. So without going too far into this, and I know when we start talking mill levies and mill values, and sometimes that can get very confusing very quickly. So I would gladly stand for any questions if you have further questions of me.
Thank you, Mr. Lakefield. Any questions? Alderwoman Evans.
Thank you for your patience in walking us through this, because it is complicated, at least for me it is. Okay, so in 2021, when we approved the budget, staff had expected or predicted $366,000 coming in through the Homestead and Disabled Veterans Tax Credits. Is that correct? About?
Alderwoman Evans and members of the council, that's correct. That was
Okay.
our best estimate.
So that's sort of what we thought was coming in. And then in January, we get our first payment and we realize, oh no, like this is not even coming close, right? We are going to be $477,000 less than what we expected in revenues.
Alderwoman Evans and members of the council, where we are going to come up short here is in what we were requesting from the tax levy
Okay.
itself.
What's the difference? Can you explain that to us?
Alderwoman Evans and members of the council, when we ask for the dollars, it's converted to a levy calculation based on the overall valuation in our district. And then they apply that levy amount to each individual property
Okay.
to calculate what each property owes in property taxes. So what this did is by including the valuation of the veterans credits and the homestead credits in this calculation, it included our overall value. So when they did that mill calculation, it reduced it slightly. And at first, it doesn't seem like that should be a big issue. But when you apply that slightly lower mill rate to those properties, it generates less dollars. So ultimately, what happened here is the taxpayers got a slightly lower bill as a result of this change. So they came up at their end of the deal, they got a discount or a reduction of around 2%. So on our side of things, we anticipated the full dollar amount or what we had asked for. So now we're trying to make up for that shortfall. And the shortfall is spread across all of the funds that ask for money from the mill levy. So that includes general fund, it includes the library, cemetery, airport, debt service funds, equipment funds. So it's spread across a number of funds. And some of those funds don't have the flexibility. They're very small departments or small funds. They don't have the flexibility to absorb some of this fluctuation in funding.
So tell me, why do we have to do the full $477,000 now? Like, can we spread this out over like quarterly? Like what the departments and entities that are expecting this money, I mean, they're not expecting it for their budgets for next month, correct? It's for the year 2021. Walk us through the pros and cons of, like, for instance, us doing $100,000 tonight, $100,000 in 3 months, and the remaining in another 3 months.
Alderwoman Evans and members of the council, what we are proposing here tonight is just a transfer from the general fund cash reserves to those other funds outside of the general fund. And I don't have the total math here, but the general fund shortfall was just over $361,000. So that was the bulk of the shortfall, and that will stay in the general fund. We did consider doing monthly transfers or some other different time frame. Part of the difficulty with that is debt service. Those payments come due at varying times throughout the year. So it was just probably more efficient for us to bring this to council and get the approval to make the transfer up front. Like I said earlier, some of these funds don't have the capacity to absorb a shortage in funding, and debt service is one of those. Obviously, we want to make good on our promise to service those bondholders and make those debt payments, and we wouldn't want to come up short with that. Some other departments don't have adequate reserves in their fund already, because of downturns in service or with the impacts that we've seen. So rather than spread that out over a longer time, it just seemed to be more efficient for those funds other than the general fund to make the transfer right now. Like I said in the memo, we'll still make every effort to reduce spending in all of these funds to accommodate this moving forward.
Thank you for those explanations, Mr. Lakefield.
Any further questions for our finance director? Thank you, David. We are at the point looking for a motion.
Move approval.
Motion by Alderman Pittner to approve the recommendations. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Alderwoman Olson. Any discussion on the motion? Any discussion? Final call. Seeing none, the motion is to approve. Please call the roll.
Pittner,
Yes.
Padragula,
Yes.
Ross,
Yes.
Sitma,
Yes.
Evans,
Yes.
Janser,
Yes.
Olson.
Yes.
Motion is approved. 5.7 is the Munis and City Works integration. This is Work Order 4433. We will have a presentation by Mr. Meyer here, if I'm looking at this correctly. This is the city's asset management and permitting software called CityWorks is currently being implemented. The CityWorks must be integrated with the city's financial software Munis based on the final scope of the CityWorks and Munis. A budget increase is needed to complete the integration. The recommendation before the council is to approve the budget amendment and use of general fund cash reserves on first reading. I would look to either the city manager or Mr. Meyer for more on the recommendation.
I just had two questions.
Okay. Perhaps maybe I'll just look to Alderwoman Evans for answers to those questions. Alderwoman Evans.
Thank you, Mr. Meyer. I'm not picking you out. Anytime we sort of are dipping into reserves because we've overrun on costs, I just think it's important to sort of put out in the open what happened. You sort of explained it to me earlier today, but for the benefit of my colleagues and the publics, just sort of walk us through, what was asked for and why the costs have increased and this additional monies is needed.
Certainly. Mr. Mayor and Alderwoman Evans, as you know, we're working on 3 major software projects throughout the city. We have our Munis project, which is our ERP system, our Asset Works system, which is governing all of our fleet management, and then CityWorks, which is all of our infrastructure assets. So these 3 large software projects all have to work in concert together to trade information back and forth between these software systems. It's primarily financial data and then employee data that gets traded back and forth between these systems. About 1.5 years ago, when we scoped these projects, because of their size and complexity, there's no way we would know exactly what modules or items or account numbers would have to be coordinated and integrated together. So what we did is we made a best guess based on our consultants' past experience with projects similar to this size and scope, and we put funds in the budget this year for this task. Our best guess at that time was about $50,000. Now, you fast forward a year, and we've been spending thousands of hours of staff time programming these projects and getting them ready to roll out. We now have an understanding of what the scope is to tie all this together. And so we were close. We're about $27,000 off. And basically, the increase in price was due to 2 things. One, there's a couple more modules that we needed to integrate with Munis that we hadn't anticipated because we didn't know that those would be included yet in the scope when they were developing the Munis software. The second thing is we were assuming that some of the Munis APIs or the connection software that makes all this tie together would be similar to what the city of Auburn, Alabama had used. It's almost an identical project to ours. So we thought we had a pretty good number, but when we got the APIs from Munis, they're slightly different. So that means we're going to have some more planning and programming time with our project as well to make sense of some of that new programming language. And so that's why the increase in cost.
Thank you. That's
You're welcome.
very helpful.
Any further questions for our city engineer? Mr. City Manager.
Not a question, but more of a statement. So as I talk with my colleagues across the country, and particularly in the region, this is not an uncommon problem or issue. So I want to be very clear. This isn't, I don't want this to be perceived as staff not doing their job correctly or not writing contracts correctly, those types of things. These financial software and these software packages aren't necessarily a monopoly, but there's not a lot of competition either. And as city managers, as we attend our conferences and we dialogue with each other, this has increasingly come up of frustration of salesmen come in and do a good job and promise a bill of goods. And then when we help councils and communities make significant financial commitments to go to this software. And then once we get into the meat and potatoes of trying to make all this work, we find out that it doesn't work quite as well as it was sold. And this represents significant cost adjustments to communities throughout the country. Anyway, I just wanted to make that statement that this isn't a derelict of duty of staff or contract writing. Unfortunately, this is the world we're dealing with when it comes to these software companies, and there's been a collective effort of city managers to try and bring this to light and have more meaningful conversations with these companies to be closer on delivering what they promise when they bring these to the communities. Anyway, I just want to make that point.
Alderman Janser.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I guess in light of what City Manager Stewart has said, I would also comment that in IT generally, this is not an uncommon situation. You know, you have a couple of different pieces of software that do a certain aspect of what needs to be done very well, but then so you pick them for that reason, but then they need to talk to each other and to mesh together. And so there are many times it is an integration element that is necessary in order to make that all work. So I want to support this because I think it makes sense.
Alderman Patagula.
I wanted to offer a further reassurance. Mark and I were on the committees that helped select these vendors, and we spent days and days and days in meetings with them and city staff. And clearly this was going to be a very expensive, very time-consuming project, 2, 3, 5 years even, till we get the full benefits. I don't feel we were deceived, maybe from a manager's standpoint. When you look at the entire picture, maybe that there is some aggressive marketing, but I don't feel we were deceived in any way. It was very clearly a very, very ambitious and also very much overdue set of projects. So if it comes out that we're $27,000 off, I am not at all surprised. I think we had, at least I had the expectation that we were opening up, this enormous project. And if we're if we're only $27,000 off, I think we've done pretty well. Very complex. And it's one of those things too where you don't realize how complex it is until you actually get into it and look at all the permutations and the changes. And so I feel very, very comfortable, and I appreciate Mark's professional opinion from the data management side of it. And hopefully, Harold, you and your fellow city managers can kind of keep turning the screws to these companies to try to get them even better. But like I said, I'm quite comfortable with it.
Certainly not made any easier, too, at the fact that the last software update that we did decades and decades ago. Alderman Ross.
But still, thank you, Mr. Mayor, but still, I understand it's only 27,000, but Lance, the line item for that process was approximately $50,000?
Mr. Mayor and Alderman Ross, that was staff's best guess at what the integration would be. So at that time, we couldn't develop a scope and ask them for a quote because we didn't quite know yet what we'd be integrating with, because both of the scopes of these softwares hadn't been developed at the time of the budget.
Sure. And I guess my only thing is, you know, I'm kind of with Mr. Stewart. I mean, putting the screws to these companies a little bit. I mean, they should have some more input or some more, you know, you get a quote for $50,000 and you're off by 50%. That's what kind of rang true, or that's where the flag raised for me. But I think we just need to keep our screws in. And personally, I think it's a commonplace where, you know, especially in government, I think private contractors have a heyday with change orders. And I don't know if there's anything we can do to stop it, but, you know, there's frustration out there. I'm not pointing a finger at staff at all. I'm just pointing a finger at the whole process. That, I mean, we're off by 50%, you know, on a line item. Yeah, only $27,000. The whole scope of things, yeah, that's, you know, that's probably a drop in the bucket. But 27,000 here, 75,000 here, 80,000 here, you know, it adds up. That's what I'm saying. But thank you. Thank you for your information.
Certainly.
Any further discussion or questions? Thank you, Lance.
You're
Appreciate it. Looking for a motion.
Move approval.
Motion by Alderman Pittner to approve. Is there a second? Second by Alderman Janser. Any discussion on the motion? Any discussion? Last call. Motion is to approve the Munis City Works integration. Please call the roll.
Pittner,
Yes.
Madrigula,
Yes.
Ross,
Yes.
Sitma,
Yes.
Evans,
Yes.
Janser,
Yes.
Olson.
Yes.
Motion is approved. That is the end of Section 5, taking us to the action items under Section 6. We have one item for consideration. That is the Minot International Airport Coronavirus Response and Relief Supplemental Appropriations Act grant acceptance. Similar to the CARES Act funding received by the airport in 2020, the CRSSA funding is offered to airports to assist with the operational expenses during the time of reduced passenger traffic and declining ancillary revenue that has resulted from the ongoing COVID-19 pandemic. New to this round of relief is money allocated specifically for the airport concessionaires, the example being car rental companies and food and beverage. Minot International Airport has been offered $1,689,084 for operational expenses and $35,147 to be used to assist the on-airport concessionaires. Two recommendations before us is the council approve the acceptance of the CRRSA grant as described in the attached application for the federal assistance under FSSF-424s and authorize the airport director to sign any applicable documentation.
Move approval.
Motion by Alderman Pittner to approve. Is there a second? Second by Alderman Ross. Discussion on the motion. Any discussion on the motion? Last call. Motion is to approve item 6.1. Please call the roll.
Pittner,
Yep.
Madrigula,
Yes.
Ross,
Yes.
Sitma,
Yes.
Evans,
Yes.
Janser,
Yes.
Olson.
Yes.
Motion is approved. That takes us to Section 7, which is personal appearances. This is an opportunity for anyone to come forward and speak either on any topic that is or is not on our agenda this evening. One more call for personal appearances. An opportunity for anyone to come forward and speak on any item that is or is not on our agenda. Seeing none, moving on to the miscellaneous and discussion items. We don't have any items that are listed unless any item that is needed for discussion for the betterment of the order this evening can be brought now by the council. All right, that takes us to item 9, the liaison reports. Alderman Pittner.
Thank you, Mayor. Our Renaissance Review Board meeting was canceled this month due to no actionable items. However, last month's meeting, we did kind of a a review of the guidelines. Alderman Padragula was kind enough to provide a lot of insight into just some recommendations and/or revisions. Basically, just taking a good look at and revisiting the guidelines, which I think is a healthy thing to do. But again, I think the program is working, and we're seeing a concerted effort by staff and the planning department to now really try to advertise this program to people in the community. I think it's an underutilized tool in the toolbox that's been there for an amount of time, but maybe just hasn't had the awareness that it's due. Visit Minot CVB board. Obviously, there was a press release here a couple weeks ago that Minot was awarded the women's NCHA national tournament, which will be hosted here Minot will be the hosting city this spring. So obviously that's a huge win for Minot to get people in the community, and some of the projects with the enterprise agreement that we entered with the Minot CVB are already reaping some of the benefits already. And I think this is just a small sign of things to come through that agreement and some of the hard work that's being put in to get events like that to Minot. So I'm proud to be a part of the team bringing some of those things in. So.
Thank you, Alderman Pittner, and we look forward to more information as that tournament approaches. Alderman Janser.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We held our first liaison committee meeting of the year. Spent some time in a reorganization effort with electing a new chair and seating some new members. And then spent some time talking about a couple of things, including the COVID response and change in the risk level in North Dakota, which had been announced that day. So we'll be looking forward to another meeting next quarter.
Thank you, Alderman Janser. Alderman Ross.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just covering some of the things on the zoning ordinance steering committee. That has been completed. I will refer to, if you have any questions on that, Brian did put together a really nice summary there. It is on page 8 of the city manager's report, so I will refer you to that. All Seasons Arena Commission meeting, we met last week. A really good meeting. We did some reorganization with officers for that. I think there's some pretty decent optimism with All Seasons Arena and the potential coming up. I kind of got the feeling that it was almost like a feeling of events coming back and things were hopefully getting back to a somewhat normal operation. We've got some different events coming in here. March is going to be huge out there with I think 2, if not 3 major events happening in the month of March. So optimism is going is up, and they're looking for big things hopefully this summer. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Alderman Ross. A couple of different meetings I was able to attend here. Chamber EDC, we did have a first regular meeting that was the combined chamber and former MADC, going through all of the financials and starting to really pair all of that together, and also working through some of the changes that have to take place on the state level with the merging of those two entities, and also continuing to work towards some other economic development opportunities that are still working through the system. So some of those really can't go into detail yet. However, hopefully some of those, at least one of those, hopefully will come to fruition in the not too distant future. We also did have a Task Force 21 meeting talking about the new administration that has taken over in Washington, and also got some really good perspectives from a representative from Senator Hovind's administration in D.C. about not only the nuclear triad, but some of the different projects that are slated for Minot Air Force Base, with perspective on really the general attitude from not only the new administration, but those in Washington towards some of those projects, not only at Minot Air Force Base, but bases that also encompass the nuclear triad. So if you have any more detailed questions on that, I would defer to Alderman Janser, who seems to have a much better grasp, deeper grasp on all of that on a regular basis. Alderwoman Evans.
So the library is really, getting back to normal. We love to see that. Their hours are back to 9 to 7, Monday through Thursday, and then 10 to 5 on Friday and Saturdays. So programming is getting back up. Like Tom said, with all seasons, some normalcy is starting to come back, and I think we're all welcoming that. I see the parking lot at the library full on the weekends, which always brings a little smile to my heart. So it's great to see that. Ward County Planning, Alderman Padragula and I continue to work with the Planning Commission on the zoning rewrite. We are making tremendous progress. Every week we're making progress. We should, hopefully in the next few months before farming season starts, get those to the public for input. It's a huge undertaking, but it's been very enlightening. Another thing we'll be talking about more in the future, Mr. Zakian probably will be giving us more information, is I serve as the liaison to the family shelter for our resiliency money. And as folks probably know, that was spearheaded to be operated by Lutheran Social Services, which is non-existent now. So Mr. Zakian and his staff have been amazing in reacting quickly and ensuring that the project can continue, finding options for different agencies perhaps to run the family shelter. But I just want folks to know we are absolutely committed to getting this family shelter back on track and built and occupied. It is something that is still needed in our community. So I'd like to, just thank John Zakian for really handling the situation well and keeping us informed and apprised of what's going on. And we'll have more to report in the coming months on what the plans and options are for us as a city.
Thank you, Alderwoman Evans. Alderwoman Olson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Last week I did attend the Service Based and Planning Council meeting on Zoom again. I look forward to the day that this council gets to meet in person. As long as I've been serving, we've been meeting via Zoom. So it works, but I'd anxiously like to meet some of the people that are on the council. I've been actively involved with the CTE committee. And kind of two different things to report on CTE right now, kind of two different prongs that we're looking at. One is that there is legislation that is being proposed that could benefit the city of Minot financially with some money towards the CTE. It's kind of ping-ponged back and forth on whether or not that is going to be approved, but we've certainly had discussions related to that and would certainly support the legislature in funding that endeavor. As well, we know that the purchase of a building for the CTE project that we have been working on for quite some time is in the hands of attorneys, making sure that all of the details are worked out, and we hope to be able to bring that to you very shortly so that we can purchase the building and get down the track of getting it rehabbed so that we can have a CTE program for our community. And hopefully, like I said, we should be able to report back on that very soon. This coming week, I will sit on the RFQ committee for a new city hall, so that is very exciting. And I did join Alderman Janser at the liaison committee as well, and he's reported on that. So thank you.
Thank you, Alderwoman Olson. And we're still holding down to the fires and crossing our fingers that we see a spring 2022 date for startup on that CTE.
I'm hopeful.
Alderman Padragula.
The Commission on Aging will have a face-to-face meeting on Friday. The Emergency Resource Council had its usual monthly meeting and adopted the County Disaster Emergency Plan, which is being disseminated among 20 different entities for their approval at this point and signature. And the County Planning Commission is logging through the zoning revision, and we will be having another 3-hour meeting this Thursday evening. So That's all I have to report.
I have one.
Yes, Alderwoman
I'm just
Evans.
wondering if your city manager can give any legislative updates on bills that were really important to Minot, like the flood, bonding and stuff like that, since our last special meeting. I don't know if there's been any developments, but I don't mean to put you on the spot.
No, that's fine. There is another bill that is moving through that is kind of a sister to the bonding bill, and Dan had sent out an email earlier as that it looks like it's coming out of committee. That one doesn't necessarily have any line item for the Mouse River Enhanced Flood Protection Project. I'm looking for direction on that. That one doesn't have any specific line item. Again, 1431, House Bill 1431 looks to be, if you want to call the parent of the bonding bills that we expect from most discussion down at the Capitol, where a lot of these bonding bills with ideas are going to be wrapped into 1431. Part of that 1431 had originally had the CTE funding in it. That has been stripped out of an amendment now and is being looked to be put into a different bill and a different mechanism down at the state. However, that is still ongoing and a little bit preliminary. We expect probably a little more direction on that later this week. The rest of them, we really just don't have a lot of, we're watching them simply because 1431 is kind of the go-to on what we expect to be the final parent of all of those bonding bills. As you saw on Friday, there is a number of the bills that did have some action on them that we're now watching into crossovers. Just for the council's understanding, some of those bills are crossing over early as they're hoping to save a little more time with some saved days for the legislature and hope to close out early. So I expect things to kick back up a little more even next week with activity on the different bills that do make it out with a pass on the House floor, and then inversely on the Senate side over to the House.
Thank you.
And we'll certainly make sure that we get those updates out is at least every Friday with any action with what's coming to the week ahead. One last item that I did want to mention and say thank you to Alderwoman Olson for taking care of the lead on the Giving Hearts Day that was held here at our last regular meeting. It looked as though the Giving Hearts event went off very well across North Dakota with a number of great organizations within the city of Minot that were participating in that and others from around the state. So that was great to see. And I'm just going to put one last plug in for anyone who is watching at home for that Binex testing to be sure to log on to the city's website. That is minotnd.org. And you can click on the link for the Binex testing to check what those days and times are for testing, because we have changed those up a little bit to meet the needs of the general public and try to be as agreeable as we can with different working hours for folks, that it's not just dayside. So check those out and make sure to pre-register before showing up. It just makes it much more fluid and much more easy. And I know, even though Chief isn't here, that the fire department is much more happy to see the 24, 27, and 30 below temperatures in the rear view as we work forward on this. So with that, we are to the end of our agenda unless there is anything else. We
Motion to
are set for adjournment.
Motion to adjourn.
Motion by Alderman Pittner to adjourn. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Alderwoman Olson. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed, same sign. We're adjourned.